Hi, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I am extremely excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family law firm in the Worcester area of Massachusetts, and she's just fantastic. She's a wealth of knowledge, and we're very lucky to have her visit us every Friday. So let's talk today about a really interesting topic that I'm sure everyone has heard, made in passing at least, or maybe they've even said it about their ex. We're going to talk about divorcing a narcissist. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. And it's one of those topics that if you haven't heard it, you're living under a rock. Talk about it and let's see if it actually matches up with your particular facts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know that, I mean, I'm certainly interested in the topic of narcissism, and I've known a lot of friends, and usually it's always pertaining to someone they're broken up with. So of course that person's a jerk, but are they a narcissist? I mean, that's a medical term, isn't it?
I believe it is. I couldn't say for sure, but I believe it is. But I think it's, it's one of those terms that's kind of used nowadays, like ADHD. OCD, like they're very commonplace. Well, wait a minute. So we've been doing all this time, and now all of a sudden everybody in the universe is a narcissist? Don't think so. So again, now that you've learned that word, let's see if we actually have a diagnosis before we kind of go down that road. So a lot of people have certain traits that looks like it, and they might be borderline, and they might be doing things that look like a narcissist, but are they really?
Well, we are in a society where everything is about me, and what can I have, especially when you're going through divorce, and especially at the end of a divorce, at the end of a relationship. I mean, certainly at the beginning of a relationship, people are putting their best foot forward and they are doing everything in the world to impress their partner. So, where does it go wrong? Is this something that they've kind of done their whole lives, where they've got this shtick where they're really nice and then they suck you in and then they play lots of games? I mean, let's just start by defining what people in general mean by narcissist.
Again, I'm not a clinician, so let's start with that. But I think the biggest things are that, what are their characteristics? Are they the person that is always wronged? Somebody always wrongs them. They never can do anything wrong. They are a perfect human being. They tell you one story and then they tell Jane the other story completely different. What does that look like and how is that played out? I think they're the most important things. So I think everyone has a little bit of that trait in them, but again, to what extreme? And I think, realistically, that's where it comes into play when you're really dealing with a divorce. You see all those bad traits and they're 100%, and they're extreme. So I think, the good thing is from the beginning, really get to know your partner. Get to know them, get to see their quirks, get to see their bad sides. They're always going to have them, but you have to know what they are and you have to know what to look for. But more importantly, again, is it all about me? I'm the one, I'm wrong. I can't believe that person did it to me. Oh my God, and it's that mentality of, well, I was right. And so I should just get whatever I want. Well, wait a minute. There's always two sides of the story. So when you hear those kind of key phrases, you should take a step back and go, really? Is this a one-time thing? Is it really just that occasion? Or is it every single time they're having that conversation with you, is that the person that you're looking at?
Yeah. And I don't want to say this is every time, but you look at little kids, right? Susie comes to you and she says, "Hey, Johnny hit me." And like some parents will say, "Well, what did you do to deserve it?" But I mean, seriously though, when someone starts treating you badly, or you've just got these red flags going up in the back of your head, are you then antagonizing it and doing your own things that could be furthering the situation down the wrong path?
Absolutely. I think those are great points because I think that happens more often than not. But again, what does that look like? Is it something that you are antagonizing? Or was it something that was more importantly that you've trained your child to do that? Or that this child just has a tendency to do it? What is that? Where did it start? How did it develop? And again, I think you need to look at the big picture. So many times, again, we look at that one little thing. Well, they're always right. And oh my God, they lie like they do not know how to tell the truth. And they think their shit don't stink. Those are comments that I hear. But again, the reality is, well, did you not know that person when you were in a relationship with them? Like, when did they all of a sudden develop this? Because again, is it something that you were just looking at in a bubble? Or did it happen all along? Or are they just doing it now because they hate your guts and they're going through a messy divorce?
I mean, that is exactly it. I mean, it's something that people need to look at for sure. And, honestly, I think it's a great time to step back and look at the pros and cons about the person and to remember to be grateful. But we're not talking about that today. We are talking about, what do you do if you do have someone who might be a narcissist or just might be having a lot of narcissistic qualities, because divorce does bring out the worst in people. And you may not even recognize your partner anymore while you're going through this process. So I mean, what I've heard is that there's no talking to them because they're always right. And I've heard you say that phrase a few times. And in those cases, it's hard to mediate, I would think. I mean, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I don't think mediation is ever a good thing for somebody that truly is a narcissist. I think the reality is you have to go in to any mediation with knowing that I'm going to give something up. Then narcissistic mentality will never give it up. I won't. You could sit there and say, I will waive, the $50,000 in child support arrears if you give me, the necklace that's worth $200. No, because you want it, I'm not going to give it to you. And that's the only reason why I'm not going to give it to you. So no, 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 no. And that's how they dig their heels in. So I think from, my perspective, it's always like, okay, so Erica, what is it that you really want? I really want that necklace. Okay, great. What is it that he thinks you want? Oh, he thinks that I want the dog. Okay, great. So we're going to fight over the dog. And then at some point, we're just going to say, well, then just give us the necklace. And somehow that all of a sudden makes sense. So you really have to kind of look at that and say, no, it's something completely different. You've got to kind of play their game. And I hate to say it that way, but really, again, their game is going to be you're a liar and I'm right and you're wrong. So when you're dealing with that mentality, you've got to know is one, don't tell them what you're weak about. Don't tell them what you really need. Tell your attorney so that we can negotiate this. Hopefully they have their own attorney that's going to try to knock some sense into them. And, again, from that perspective, that's a whole different dynamic where, again, they're trying to be right with the attorney, but they're also looking at, hey, wait a minute, she's costing me money. So you do have a little bit of leverage there as well. So I think it's setting those, clear boundaries with them, not engaging them in conversation. Don't do it. Have your attorney engage their attorney. So again, you kind of get that, yep, we got kids. Child's dropped off. That's all I need to do is say, hi, thank you very much. When has she eaten? That's it. You don't need to say anything else. You don't need to engage in conversation. You don't engage in text messages. You don't do any of that stuff, because all that's going to do is he's doing exactly what he wants and goading you on. And you're going, oh my God. And you're reacting. And now, oh God, narcissists love reactions. The reactions are the best thing in the entire world. That means that they're getting what they want. So you don't play into that game. So that's really where you got to take a step back and go, nope, my attorney said not to deal with it. And it's one word response. It's not giving them the satisfaction. When you stop giving them that empowerment, then guess what? Oh, I've got to find something else to do. I'll find some other way that will get her. And I will say this. I am saying it's he. It's not always he. It's more he than she in reality, but it is not always a male version versus a female version.
Right. And one of the things that's amazing about going through a divorce, I'm not going to say that for sure you've got a narcissist or not, but like one of it's amazing how the story changes and how their personality might change when they are in front of a judge as opposed to when they are dealing with you. I mean, and that's why, like, one of the things that they say is stop talking to them on the phone, get everything in writing. And that's way you have proof. You have proof that these conversations are happening, and it really makes them mad. But because they do want to goad you and they do want to have those fights and those conversations, and they thrive on that emotion. And I think what makes them even more mad is when you don't give them what they want. You just give them silence and you go through your attorney. But I mean, do you see that a lot where it's like a completely different person? They're so super polite to the judge and court, and then it's like they're nasty when they're not.
I think depending on where you are in the court system and how long the case is, generally speaking, if we're up there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I've got my attorney there, I can bite my tongue as a narcissist. I really can. I really, 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 really can. But then you get that 11th minute and oh my God, and you just see their reaction, and all of a sudden their demeanor changes. So yes, it is definitely a light switch, if you will, with their personalities. It's kind of like that bipolar mentality where all of a sudden you just went, what the hell just happened here? But they're mostly able to control it in the courtroom setting. But you are able to get under their skin. And when you get under their skin, the judge sees it almost immediately. So it does happen. Don't count on it being in the courtroom that all of a sudden the judge is going to have this light bulb moment. They're not, unless, again, they're on the stand and they're testifying. That's when we get the benefit, because now we have the full load of them looking at this going, wait a minute, I've got under their skin, and oh my God, and they can't control themselves because, again, you're hurting me. This is all about me. How dare you attack me? I'm not the enemy here. And so again, when they project that, that's exactly when it comes out. But again, that's more often than not at a trial, not necessarily at a motion hearing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What advice do you have for when you do try to take that advice that you gave about setting up boundaries? Hey, talk to my lawyer, whatever the boundaries might be. It might be, hey, let's go have a drop off somewhere other than my house or your house so that it's not as emotionally chargeable. I'm not sure, like we've discussed how they may not react nicely or may not even listen to your boundaries, because that's probably been how they were the whole time. What is your advice when they're not listening to your boundaries?
Well, I think it depends on how those boundaries are set. I mean, ideally, you're going to set those boundaries and you're going to set that in a court document. So you're going to set a temporary order that's going to state that the exchange of the child will happen at, and ideally, the child's of school age. It's going to be mom drops off, dad picks up, mom drops off. So they never see each other. That's the ideal goal. But when we can't do that, or, it's the Christmas or something like that, where we have to have that exchange, the moment you kind of let them say, I don't want you at my house. Oh, well, who are you to tell me? And again, that holier than thou attitude of go piss off. Well, again, that's why you need to have the attorney kind of step in and go, well, I'm representing you, and I'm going to say, Erica doesn't want it. Okay, great. I'm going to go over to the other attorney. I'm going to say, so Attorney Smith, I just wanted to let you know that we should really have the exchanges. Let's do it at a halfway point. Oh, let's Google it. Oh, yep. The halfway point is the Dunkin' Donuts on this location. And that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell the attorney why Erica doesn't want to meet at the house. I'm not going to say that Erica doesn't want to meet at the house. I'm going to take out all of that out of the picture, and I'm going to say simply, we're going to do this here. The attorney's going to go, yeah, that's fair. Halfway, this sounds good. Okay, great. And then they'll go back to the client, and Dunkin' Donuts won't be good enough. It'll be, the dollar store down the block, whatever. Let him have his way about the dollar store. But again, now you've got what you wanted indirectly by saying, I want to do something else. So you really want to have that third party to kind of set that buffer. Then obviously the ideal goal is to get it in a temporary order. So now this court order controls. Go ahead and tell them that after you sign the stipulation and becomes a court order, that they don't want to adhere to it. Well, that's going to piss off a judge. So they're going to do their very, very, very best in not pissing off the judge, because they know that's not good, because the judge has to love me. So again, they're going to try to skirt the issues as much as possible. They're going to try to reach out to you, Erica, and say, hey, guess what? I really can't meet at the dollar store today. We really got to meet somewhere else. I'll just drop her off at the house. And you have to go, no, that's not what the court order says. So you as a client has to kind of fall back on, that's the court order. You know why you want to fall back on that, but they don't necessarily know that. So again, you kind of got to look at that stuff and figure out where that boundary can be set, in terms of your everyday life, where you have to communicate about the child. That's a little bit harder to do. So, the response is going to be, one, your answers all have to be very, very short and sweet, yes or no, or I can't do it, or something, little words. Don't engage in conversation. Don't engage in narratives. And then again, you want to have that in written communication format. You never want to engage in a conversation over the phone, because again, they're going to go into bully mode, and you're going to go, okay, do I give in, or do I feel like I'm losing this battle? Where am I at? So you want to have that written communication so that you can show it to your attorney, so that you can go into court, so you can do what you need to, but by the same token, again, short and sweet, so that the other person doesn't know exactly what your thought process is.
I think that makes a lot of sense. The less information you give them, the better is usually what happens. Now, can you tell me, in your experience, when you're going through a divorce, there are a lot of sticky situations when it comes to the kids. The kids asking questions because of something the ex-partner might be saying. They might be divulging too much information. I'm not sure what too much information is. It depends on the age of the child, I would think. And I mean, honestly, you obviously want to be honest, but you want to give them information that they don't need to have. You want to keep them having a happy childhood and not worrying about things that are adult situations. So like, what should you do if the other partner is just clearly knocking you down every chance that they get?
I think there's a couple things you can do. I think the biggest thing is, I'm never going to tell you to lie to your children, but I'm also going to tell you that, yeah, you're going to keep that information from them. That's their parent, and they love that parent. So, whether you can put it in terms that a child would understand or not is really irrelevant. They don't need to know that. That's kind of your burden. That's, share with your friends, share with your family, share with whoever you want, but don't share with your children. What you do to your children is go, okay, so what does my child need? Is my child not getting love? Is my child not getting attention? Is my child feeling neglected? Where can you overcompensate for that other parent that is lacking? Because you're never going to be able to convince that parent to do whatever it is that that child needs. You can tell them till the cows come home. Great. It's not going to happen though. So what you really want to do is do that overcompensation for whatever that child feels is lacking. So I think that's the big thing. I think the other thing is, you want to, encourage that relationship. Mommy, daddy is doing the best job that they can. Sometimes they just get focused on other things, and it's really hard for them to, kind of give you what you need right now. But how can I help you? Again, going back to put it on my shoulders, because I'm the adult, I'm the parent, I'm the one that's going to help you out. Big picture is at some point the child's going to grow up, and they're going to learn, this term that everyone knows about. And so they're going to develop their own thoughts and processes about that. But again, it's how can I help this child? I guess the other important thing is, counseling. Hello. We live in a day and age where, that person probably won't get counseling because, again, they're smarter than everyone else and they're always right. But what can you do for this child? If the child's feeling neglected, if the child's not getting something, can she talk to a person to get that relationship? Can she get that information from a therapist in an environment that is neutral, and therapists can kind of go, well, Sally, why don't we work on this, this, and this, and let's see how that works for the next session. And let's see if she's getting it from some third party, because again, it might not be mommy or daddy can fix it. It might be that the third party is giving alternate solutions or just making comments that make sense to the child. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I think from your perspective, your job is to overcompensate, not financially, not gift wise, but in emotions, in empathy, in understanding of what is going on. That's where you thrive, and that's where your child will benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes it's more listening than giving answers. You can redirect just like psychiatrists do, right? And how do you feel about that? I mean, that can be annoying. Don't do it to the point where no one wants to talk to you because you never give a real answer. But I mean, they're kids and you've got the relationship with them. It's very unfortunate that, when parents are going through something like this, they're having a lot of big emotions as well on both sides. And there's a lot of stressors that have to do with, that the end of a relationship that's really clearly like a death in the family, and mourning that loss in addition to trying to figure out how you're going to live, where you're going to live, do you have enough money, there's a lot of different things that parents are stressed about, so they don't always handle all the situations the right way with kids. But as long as everyone is trying to do the best they can for their child and not give the child too much information, typically they'll turn out all right in the end.
Absolutely.
Now, I only had a few questions here around how to handle the end of the relationship with a narcissist. And I mean, there's obviously ongoing situations where sometimes children are used as pawns. They may be giving your kid the Spanish Inquisition every time you go to their house about what mommy's doing, and vice versa. I mean, there are some adults that are really like children, and it's really too bad for the kids. I mean, have you seen any of that? I mean, I know that you deal with this every single day.
Of course, I've seen that. I mean, I think that it happens more often than not. I think, again, as attorneys, we always write in, what is essentially fluff language, because good luck proving it. But we write in the language that neither party is going to disparage the other, neither party is going to inquire of the children as to where they are. I mean, the reality is sometimes it's just so simple as, hey, honey, did you have a good day at school? How was it at daddy's house? And you're just genuinely care about your child, and they have diarrhea of the mouth, and that's great. But sometimes it's, oh, so daddy said that to you, and what did he say after that, and what did he do? And it's when you get to that stage, you kind of go, no, that's not appropriate. So again, we as attorneys write in this language that try to protect the child, try to protect or try to enforce, if you will, the parents from doing stupid things like that. It's very hard unless we have a third party that's standing there, or they're out in the soccer field and they're talking and the other parent hears it, or a neighboring parent hears that stuff, to really go, hey, look, you did this wrong and you violated this court order. So I think, it's a little bit of that, like I said, that fluff language. I think you as a parent has to again go back to, keeping it simple with your child, having that conversation that just, mommy and daddy love you, we're going through a divorce. Look at all the good things that are going to happen in life. You get to have 2 Christmases. You get to have, multiple birthday parties. You get to have all these extra things. You get to have vacation time alone with mommy and daddy. And that's kind of where you want to focus on as a parent, to show that these things are the best things in life. And I can't tell you how many times people go, man, I love having 2 birthdays. I love having 2 Christmases. It's great. But I think those are the things that you want to focus on as a parent to kind of deflect what the other parent is doing.
Absolutely. And you got to make the positive. This is overall a positive thing. I mean, most people come out of divorce happy. I mean, there's that joke that everyone tells, why are divorces so expensive? Because they're worth it. And they are, and you get to start over again. And children have to deal with a lot more than the adults, I think, because a lot of times they're living in two places and they're not old enough to understand, and they view it as something sad.
And
So yeah.
I think one of the big things on that is that, they are sad, but the reality is it's a whole different dynamic. They've lost this relationship that they know. Guarantee you, every single child growing up that has been in that situation where parents are fighting and parents are acting crazy and parents are just not getting along, at the end of the day, when they're adults, they're like, oh, thank Christ you guys got divorced. You never hear anyone say, oh my God, I can't believe you separated and you broke up. No, you don't have that. So you kind of got to look at end picture from their perspective, is that they know it's a good thing. They don't know how to articulate it and they don't want it to happen. But at the end of the day, internally, it is a relief to them. And you need to make sure that you separate those ties and be able to go your separate ways.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a really good interview, and I think very insightful for people that are going through a divorce, with someone that has narcissistic qualities, and always look at yourself too to see what you're doing. That might be going down the wrong path as well. And I think that, you'll be able to have a better experience, as good as can be expected with going through such a tough time. Is there anything we missed? Anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't bring up today?
I think there's, we could talk about this topic probably for a good 24 hours and not go over the same thing, because I think it's so in depth, and I think there's so many different avenues and nuances that happen in any of these cases. I think the reality is, again, you want to be that supportive parent. You also want to take, and I think that was a great tip, is you want to take that look and internally, are you doing this stuff? Because guess what? The narcissist might be you. And I hate to say that, but guess what? We as outsiders can see it. So you kind of have to, ask your true friends and family and go, do I do that? Because again, I think every one of us has a little bit of that in us. We all do. We all want to be right. We all want to be perfect. We all want to be beautiful. We all want to be loved. Absolutely. But again, do you take it to that extreme where I am that person? Is it different than I want to be that person? So I think you do need reflection. And I think you also need to have, friends and family to kind of give you that insight about, am I doing this stuff? How can I better myself, so that my child doesn't have to be put in this middle? Because guess what? If you're exhibiting more of those narcissistic tendencies yourself, and the other person is a narcissist, that's set up for disaster. And the person that's going to be hurt the most is your child.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that in these situations, realizing that everyone's going through something that's hard and that they're probably not acting like themselves. In fact, in the divorce classes that you're required to take in Massachusetts, they actually have this chart of all the different emotions that people typically go through. And they say to you, like, listen, you're both going to be going through these different phases, maybe not at the same time, where, your partner might be happy and carefree and fine about it, while the other partner is still really at a deep mourning. And, sometimes you think that you're over it and it's fine. And then bam, your ex-partner gets a new girlfriend or boyfriend, and all of a sudden you are crashing down into one of those more depressive phases. And whenever you're dealing with your ex, you realize your ex might be in that spot and you have no idea. So just try to treat each other with some compassion, because it is one of the most stressful things that a person can go through. And a lot of times people hold on to it their whole lives. Somewhere deep inside of them, they might be able to move on, but that hurt doesn't go away. So I mean, that's some of the advice that I can give as someone that went through it, within the last few years.
And I definitely think that's sage advice. I think the reality is I know people that have been divorced for 30 plus years, and they've always said, my parents will never be in the same room for my wedding. I will have to pick. And then I have parents that are best friends, and they're great as friends. They're bad as husband and wife. So I think, you've got to try to figure out, where can I be a compassionate human being? And really, that's what you should strive for.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite interviews. This is I love the emotional parts of what you have to deal with, because I always feel like that makes your job so difficult, because you're not just an attorney. Like if you go to a business attorney and you want a contract for, an employment agreement or something like that, it's just cut and dry. When people come to you and they tell you their sex lives and their money problems and their whole relationship history, and you have to kind of listen to that, be empathetic, and then you have to say, well, these are the best strategies, this is what you do. And it can be very cut and dry, because it's the law. And then you have to tell them, look, it's fine to have these emotions, just don't show it in court, and don't be a jerk to your ex, and and don't put anything in writing to them that shows that you're being a jerk to your ex. So I mean, your job is multifaceted and fascinating, much harder, I think, than most types of law.
I tend to agree with most of that, and simply because, again, I have to wear all of those hats, and I also have to be kind of the person that puts a foot down and go, you're out of control. So you will get that, because you need to hear it. Everything you do is going to have a direct impact on the results of your case.
Absolutely. So this is where I would say to anyone that has any family law issues, really go to Nicole. She will give it to you straight. She is very compassionate and empathetic, but she will tell you, what is realistic. And that's what you need when you are in a place of emotion. There's a reason why attorneys, even divorce attorneys, get attorneys when they're going through a divorce, because they know they're not in the space to handle it. And they need someone with sage advice and a cool head, and who is incredibly intelligent in the field of family law. And that is Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. So thank you so much for doing what you do, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for watching, and tune in for our next show. We will have another interesting topic coming soon.